Redditors who are married to Karens, how is it like? Story 1, the perpetual complaint. Being married to my wife, who most people would label a Karen, is like living in a constant state of tension. From the moment we step out the door, I can feel her radar go up, scanning for the slightest inconvenience. Whether it's at a restaurant, a store, or even just a simple walk in the park, she finds something to complain about. The food is never cooked right, the service is always too slow, and the cashier is inevitably rude or incompetent in her eyes. It's exhausting, to be honest. I find myself apologizing to wait staff, cashiers, and even random strangers on her behalf more often than I'd like to admit. What's worse is that she doesn't see anything wrong with her behavior. She thinks she's standing up for herself and that she deserves the best. But what she doesn't realize is that she's making everyone around her miserable. The worst was the time we were at a family gathering and she decided to critique my cousin's new house. She pointed out every flaw, how the kitchen was too small, the decor was tacky, and even went so far as to say they should have waited until they could afford something better. My cousin was visibly hurt and I just wanted to crawl under a rock. I tried talking to her about it later, but she dismissed my concerns, saying she was just being honest. Over time, I've learned to pick my battles, but it's not easy. I love her, but it's hard to deal with the constant negativity. I find myself dreading social situations because I know there's a good chance she'll cause a scene. The worst part is, she doesn't understand why our friends have started distancing themselves. She thinks they're just jealous or not worth our time. It's isolating, and sometimes I wonder how much longer I can put up with it. But then there are moments when she's sweet and caring, and I remember why I fell in love with her in the first place. It's those moments that keep me holding on even though the scales seem to tip further and further in the other direction. Story 2, the endless returns. Being married to my wife, who could easily be described as a Karen, means that every shopping trip is an ordeal. She's not just picky, she's obsessive. Every item she buys, no matter how small, is subject to intense scrutiny. If there's even the slightest flaw, real or imagined, it's going back to the store. This happens so often that the staff at our local stores know her by name, and not in a good way. They brace themselves when they see her coming, knowing that she's likely to cause a scene. She always insists on speaking to the manager, no matter how minor the issue. It could be a tiny scratch on a kitchen appliance, or the packaging of a product being slightly damaged. She's convinced that she deserves a full refund, or at least a significant discount, and she won't take no for an answer. The worst part is when she insists that I come along. I stand there, embarrassed and helpless as she demands to be compensated for some trivial inconvenience. She gets loud, insistent, and sometimes downright rude. I can see the frustration on the employees' faces, and I just want to disappear. Once, she even returned a toaster 3 times because she claimed it didn't toast the bread evenly. The employees tried to explain that it was a standard product and worked as intended, but she wouldn't have it. She stormed out, furious, and vowed never to shop there again. Of course, she was back a week later, ready to pick another fight. At home, it's no different. She's constantly sending things back that she ordered online, finding fault in everything. It's exhausting to live with someone who is never satisfied. She doesn't understand why it stresses me out so much, saying she's just getting what she paid for. But the truth is, it's not about the products. It's about the need to always be right, to always win, and that's a battle that's wearing me down. I sometimes wonder what it would be like to have a peaceful life where things didn't have to be a constant struggle, but then I remind myself that this is who she is and that there's more to her than this. It's just that the Karen side of her is the one the world sees most often, and it's the one that's hardest to live with. Living with my wife, who embodies the Karen stereotype, means that our home is often ground zero for her social media crusades. She's constantly on her phone or laptop, posting reviews, leaving comments, and engaging in heated debates. But these aren't just casual opinions. Every post is a battle. Every comment section is a war zone. If a restaurant didn't meet her expectations, you can bet there will be a scathing review online before we even get home. She'll go into excruciating detail about how the service was subpar, how the food wasn't up to her standards, and how she expects better from any establishment that wants to stay in business. And it doesn't stop there. She'll tag the business, share the post across multiple platforms, and even encourage her followers to avoid the place. It's as if she's on a mission to bring down anyone who doesn't cater to her exacting standards. Then there's the neighborhood Facebook group. She's one of the most active members, always ready to voice her opinion on any issue, big or small. Whether it's about how someone's lawn isn't properly maintained or a complaint about the noise from a neighbor's party, she's right there, typing away furiously. She's even gotten into arguments with other members, accusing them of being inconsiderate or irresponsible. It's exhausting to witness. I've tried to talk to her about how her constant negativity online is affecting our lives, but she doesn't see it that way. She thinks she's just holding people accountable, making sure standards are met. But what she doesn't realize is that she's pushing people away. Our friends have started to unfollow her, and some have even quietly distanced themselves from us altogether. She notices but blames them for being too sensitive or not understanding her standards. What's more frustrating is how she's always looking for the next thing to criticize. Whether it's a new product, a new service, or even a new TV show, she's got to be the first to post her honest opinion. It's like she thrives on the drama, on the attention she gets from being outspoken. Living in this environment is tough. It feels like I'm constantly on edge, waiting for the next complaint, the next online battle. I miss the days when life was simpler, when every experience didn't have to be scrutinized or turned into a public spectacle. But this is our reality now, and I'm just trying to navigate it without getting caught in the crossfire. Being married to my wife, who fits the Karen stereotype to a T, means that customer service encounters are rarely simple or pleasant. No matter where we go, whether it's a store, a restaurant, or even just a simple call to a utility company, she's ready to pounce at the slightest hint of what she considers poor service. It's like she's on high alert, just waiting for someone to make a mistake so she can unleash her wrath. I can't count the number of times I've watched her berate a server or cashier over something trivial, like the temperature of her coffee or the wait time for a table. She'll insist on speaking to the manager every single time, convinced that she's been wronged and that the only solution is immediate and drastic action. What's worse is that she has absolutely no patience. If she's put on hold for more than a minute during a phone call, she'll start shouting, demanding to speak to someone competent. She keeps a mental list of every company and establishment that has ever crossed her, and she'll refuse to give them any further business, often going out of her way to tell others to do the same. One of the most memorable incidents happened at a hotel during what was supposed to be a relaxing weekend getaway. There was a mix-up with our reservation, and instead of handling it calmly, she immediately launched into a tirade at the front desk clerk, who was clearly new and overwhelmed. The poor girl tried her best to fix the situation, but my wife just kept escalating, demanding upgrades, free services, and eventually the manager. By the time the manager arrived, my wife had worked herself into such a state that the entire lobby was staring. The manager, trying to defuse the situation, offered us a complimentary stay, but even that wasn't enough. She insisted on getting everything in writing, making sure the clerk was reprimanded, and then berated the manager for not having better staff. I was mortified. We ended up spending the weekend in awkward silence, with me desperately trying to avoid any further confrontations. The saddest part is that she genuinely believes she's in the right, that she's just standing up for herself and ensuring we get the best treatment. But what she doesn't see is the damage it does to our experiences, to the people she targets, and to our relationship. I often find myself apologizing to the people she tears down, trying to smooth things over after she storms off. It's exhausting, and it's made me dread even the simplest outings, knowing that at any moment things could go south fast. Living with my wife, who definitely fits the Karen stereotype, has been particularly challenging when it comes to raising our kids. She's the type of mother who is convinced that our children are always right and that the world is constantly out to get them. Every time there's a minor issue at school, whether it's a low grade, a disciplinary action, or even just a disagreement with another child, she's on the phone with the principal or teacher, demanding explanations and retribution. She doesn't just ask questions, she interrogates, convinced that our kids could never be at fault. I've lost count of the number of times she stormed into the school, demanding to see the principal because one of our kids received a grade she didn't think was fair. It doesn't matter if the teacher explains that our child didn't do the homework or struggled with the test material. She always finds a way to turn it into a failure on the school's part, not our child's. This has created a strange dynamic at home, where our kids have learned to come to her with every little problem, knowing she'll go to bat for them, no matter what. It's reached the point where they don't even try to solve their own issues anymore. They just let mom handle it. The worst was when our youngest was caught cheating on a test. Instead of letting him face the consequences and learn from the experience, she marched into the school and berated the teacher for not providing enough support, as if it were somehow the teacher's fault that our son felt the need to cheat. She demanded that the incident be removed from his record, threatening to go to the school board if it wasn't. What's hardest for me is seeing how this overprotectiveness is affecting our kids. They're growing up without learning how to take responsibility for their actions or how to navigate the challenges that life inevitably throws at you. And whenever I try to talk to her about it, she accuses me of not caring about our children enough. of not supporting them. It's frustrating, to say the least. I love my kids, and I want them to succeed, but I also want them to learn resilience and accountability. But with her constantly fighting their battles, I worry they'll never develop those qualities. It's a constant source of tension in our marriage, and I can't help but wonder what the future holds for our family if this dynamic continues.